So Cobra's new DS Adapt range of woods, hybrids and irons. Today we're going to do a bit of an overview on what the changes are, the tech updates and what you can expect to see results-wise from those as well relative to last year's dark speed models. So we're going to start with the drivers. Driver-wise, there's some technological updates that track across all the different heads. So broadly speaking, what's been done on one has been done on everything in this aspect. So one of the key things overall, and we'll come on to the adapter shortly once we've covered the head dynamics, is aerodynamics. So Cobra really focused on getting a higher peak to the crown across all the models and smoother shapes around the sole and around the perimeter of the head. And this is really about optimizing the speed of the club head through the air. So having a bit of a peak and a crown there actually gets the air to hug the top of the club head, which means more efficiency, more speed, less drag essentially, just like you do in a Formula One car. The aerodynamics are really key, considering how that club head works through the air and rotates to how that tracks. So the more you can reduce drag, you improve airflow efficiency, and you can improve a little bit of club speed as well as efficiency at squaring the face up. Something that Cobra focused on before as well, but that's one of the key elements of this, and you can see with some of the ribbing and the shaping through the sole of the head there, that where that takes effect. The next aspect is hot face, highly optimized topographical topography. Might have got that slightly wrong, it's close enough. Essentially, speed, high speed face. It's a face insert which is now a little bit larger, and the larger that insert, the more the face flexes. The more the face flexes, the more the speed is maintained across the face. Now, they're not able to make the middle of the face faster, but if you can improve off-center performance, which is what that face flexion is going to do, better performance off-center, and then higher ball speeds on average across the whole face. And again, this tracks across all four different models of head. Next, we have a power bridge. Now the power bridge is in the back of the head, and this is only in the 9-degree models of the LS and the X, which are these two. So what it is it's a structure in the back of the head, which in this instance is rounded a little bit more. The curvature is being increased. And what that does, it's a little bit of support to the framework. And that support to the frame means less deformation. If you have deformation, you're losing energy. So it supports that framework, optimizes center of gravity as well. But by moving it around and curving it a little bit, it moves the CG forward slightly, reduces spin. But this is only in the X and the LS models in the 9-degree, because that's really where they're trying to get that spin as low as possible, get that CG forward as much as possible to keep spin down and to keep ball speed up. So the final bit on the framework of the head is what they're calling tour-inspired shaping. Now, this really means it's a slightly neater, cleaner frame. It looks a little bit smaller. The actual CC of the head hasn't got smaller, but the shaping is a little bit tighter, a little bit neater, which as you look down on the club, from above, that's just going to look a slightly neater frame. It's something that players always like to see. Big bulbous heads can look a little bit clumsy, and I think they're all large enough now that we don't need to make them look bigger and bigger and bigger. Actually, we do have a lot of people who say a slightly neater head shape just sits better behind the ball, and that's again something that they focused on, that shaping across all four of the heads, with obviously the LS being just that little bit more compact overall. Final piece that tracks across all of the drivers is the Future Fit 33 sleeve. Now this adapter here, as you can see, there are a lot of numbers on this, and it has a separate, you could call it separate cog that moves independently of the sleeve. So you've got all the settings around the base of the sleeve, and then this extra section here that you have 33 different settings that you can, with a combination of the two sleeve positions, you can change loft, you can change lie, you can change face angle independently of one another. So you've got loads of different ways to really, really dial in the way the head sits, the loft, the face angle, shot shaping, the lie, which allows a lot of fine tuning. And from our point of view, that just makes it really, really versatile from a setup side of things. So across the different models, slight variations. So they're all looking at sort of composite crown, discretionary weighting, making the framework really, really light to be able to put weight in the most optimal position from a flight point of view. So the LS has 2 weights at the front, so low forward center of gravity means low spin. Also a weight at the back for a little bit of stability and a little bit of forgiveness. Then when we move to the X, the Adapt X, let me put that one down. We've also got that low forward weight at the front. again, lower spin, but a heavier back weight built within the frame of the head for more stability, a little bit more forgiveness. We then move on to the Max K. Now this is the Max, the sort of a 10K style driver head, and that different color, you can really see here how much weight has been moved to the back. So again, all of this weight saving around the frame of the head is really geared towards putting as much weight at the back as possible, maximizing forgiveness and stability, notwithstanding making sure that we don't lose sight of the spin and the flight characteristics, something Cobra have always been very, very good at doing, but really kind of optimizing that CG at the back, whereas this is more spread front and back. And finally we have the Max D, the Max Draw model. So again, there is a solid plug of weight at the back for stability. We've now got a weight into the heel, which removing the weight into the heel just means that helps the toe come through a little bit more and gives it a really drawbust setup to the head. So across the 4 models of head, there's lots of versatility from a base launch and spin characteristic from each series, but then also the versatility to move weight forward and back to fine tune. If you want to head with a bit more stability but a low spin, you've still got the Dark Speed X where you can move the weight forward, where the frame is designed about a bit more forgiveness, versus the LS where it's supreme low spin. And then you've got something, maximum forgiveness, maximum draw. So there really is something across the 4 models of head there for everyone. Now, I'm just going to give one a whack, see how it feels. Very nice. So now into the fairways. DS Adapt series of fairways, we've got the same kind of principal models of the LS, the X, and the Max D. The Max, so effectively the kind of the 10K Max driver model, that doesn't exist obviously in the fairway because that's not possible on a head this size. So focusing on the low spin, the kind of the upper mid launch but neutral, and the draw bars. So again, what's consistent in terms of technology with the driver into the fairway? So the 33 position future fit adapter, that's the same. Same principle in terms of number of positions and independent loft lie adjustment. And we've also got the hot face, which is the highly optimized topology, got it right that time. Highly optimized topology. So again, that slightly larger face insert, topology being it's a thick, thin face. It's got thicker and thinner spots to optimize ball speed across the face. That's what that really means. So those the principles track from driver to fairway wood, and that's just updated materials, better manufacturing processes, pushing those to the extreme and the limits a little bit more. So internally, what's different? I'll start with the middle model this time, the X. So each of these 3 has got a composite crown. That again allows optimized center of gravity positions, allows a little bit more weight to be moved around. Any weight saving you can make from the frame of the head and the structure, something like the crown, without losing structural rigidity, which again is upgraded materials, lighter, stronger. That allows you to move weight within the head to optimize lower spin, higher launch, those sort of aspects. Now in this one, it's allowed the weight to be put a little bit further back. So there's a heavier weight at the back internally. That puts CG low and back and brings the flight up. So this one's really geared around getting the higher launch profile. And what we also get in the X is the power bridge, which is in the front of the head this time. So whereas in the driver it was around the back, with this it's in the front, to keep the CG low and forward, or keep some mass low and forward for higher ball speed, lower spin. So you've got weight back for higher launch and some weight forward for lower spin and ball speed. So all around, designed around upper mid launch and a strong, powerful ball flight. So moving into the LS model. So already you can see, for a start, the extra weights in the bottom. So what we've got here is low forward center of gravity for low spin, high ball speed but low spin, and the previous model was a really low spin model, so it's super efficient for that. But we've got that back weight to, one, facilitate moving those weights around to move a bit more weight back for a bit more forgiveness, or all the way forward for maximum low spin. But that gives plenty of versatility from a setup point of view. We've got the composite crown, as with the other heads, but this one is a titanium body, it's titanium construction, 811 titanium. So that allows lighter, stronger, faster, essentially. And again, being able to put that weight internally at the optimum position, in this one, that low forward, to get that low spin, to get that strong, powerful performance. This one in the dark speed, the LS model performed really well, particularly a high spinner, trappier player. It was a fantastic head. So really excited to get this in the fitting bay to see if that carries over and where that takes us into this next year or so. And then finally into the Max Draw. So The max draw, very similar to the driver. There's a weight pad in the heel section, which again moves that weight internally. So trying to get it back and inside as much as possible. Getting it into the inside means the toe can rotate around that a little bit faster, but getting it back as much as possible means forgiveness. So again, about just moving that weight around a little bit versus previous models, the lighter frame, the lighter crown facilitating that, and optimized materials, updated materials, meaning you can be a little bit more optimal, a little more definite about moving weight to precise positions to keep moving, keep progressing performance, and keep that product developing into the next year. So, DS Adapt Hybrid. Same Future 33 sleeve, and again, all those different positions for loft and lie and face angles available in that sleeve, like in the driver and the fairway wood. In the hybrid, there are a couple of aspects that are a little bit different, and they've just utilised with the smaller head. It's got to be different tech and slightly different construction. One aspect, we've still got the hot face, so that same principle as the fairway woods of that face insert being a little bit larger for better speed retention across the face. That continues into this model. What we get differently with the DS Adapt here, we've got that forward, that power bridge weight system and structure in the front of the head, like the X fairway wood, for that lower CG, lower forward for stronger ball speed and a little bit more penetrating flight. Cobra's hybrids have generally been, in this sort of series, have generally been quite low spin heads. They've produced a really powerful flight. And whilst this launches well, that last shot there, 15 launch and for me 3-2 on spin, is a really strong going ball flight. And that's really what this is developed for. We've got a lightweight frame. There's no composite crown on this one. That will come onto on the next head. But the tungsten sole weight, there's an extra than 8 gram sole weight in the bottom here, which helps elevate the ball flight a little bit, getting that high launch and that lower spin performance you get from the power weight at the front, which then gives you maximum ball speed. So really designed around forgiveness, high ball speed, high launch, strong spin. And with all that adjustability now, which the dark speed model didn't have, that's a real plus to this model. That gives so much more versatility to setup. And for us as fitters, that's a massive upside and dare I say it, improvement on the previous model that still performed really well, but there just wasn't that versatility that we all crave as fitters. So moving on to the next model, we got the King Tech. So as with the last shot, I'm going to hit a shot with this and then discuss what the differences are. So what's noticeable from that is lower launch. So I discussed the flight just a moment ago, 15 launch, 3-2 spin. This is 12 launch. It's still quite a strong spin rate. This is purely for my dynamics. That's sort of sub 3,000. So it's still a strong going ball flight, but it brings that trajectory down. So how have they done that? Well, it's a much, much more compact frame. So if I get the other head to compare against, the size of the head is noticeably different. So more of a, dare I say it, wood style hybrid. This is more of a slightly more compact, more iron-like shape. And that's really been one of the focuses, to make it a more kind of tour-inspired, compact shape. More like one of their older models, this. And that really kind of tends to suit the eye of an iron style player, someone who's been a stronger iron player, that tighter shape, really square leading edge, really clean set over the ball. With this one, we've got the composite crown. So you can just see the weave in the top there from the composite. That again, removes weight from the crown, allows them to move that discretionary weighting internally to fine tune the launch and the spin aspects. With this one, it's a different face construction altogether. So tracking more off the iron player's profile, the power shell face is a little bit narrower than the hot face, but it wraps into the sole, much like the Tech on an iron face. So that means performance low on the face. It's good for ball speed low on the face, but it really is more of a progression from the iron structure, which means strike-wise, someone who traps it a little bit more is more likely to find this head a little bit of a better, more consistent performance than the DS Adapt there, which is slightly more wood-like in terms of setup. Both are really strong, both are really powerful. This one has the adjustable weights in the heel and the toe for moving that center of mass position, a little bit for shot shape, a little bit for strike point. Gives that versatility there, and also has got the Future 33 adapter system as well. So loads of versatility in both heads. This one's that slightly more refined shape versus the previous series, the King Tech previous model. But that gives a nice differentiation between the heads, which I don't think was there last year. You've got more compact, bigger, lower launch, higher launch. Really good combination of products this year. So moving on to the irons, we're going to start with a simple one this time. This is just a line extension. We've got the King Tour, which has got that TPC insert in the back. This one is literally just an extension to the diamondized black metal finish, so DBM for short. So exactly the same specs as in the chrome, just in the black finish. Really good looking club head, and if you've got a black shaft, pair it with a black shaft. Looks stunning, but great head, been really successful last year. Surprised a few people performance-wise, but the black finish, if you like that in the irons, if you're a kind of Cam Smith fan from a visual point of view, these are certainly an option for you. Obviously, he's a Titleist player though. So, moving on to the DS Adapt iron. So this one takes over from the Dark Speed X. There are several aspects in this that actually track through to some of the wood construction side of things. So what we have in this is a speed shell construction of the face. There is the hot face tech, as you can see. There's a little bit of a notation to that on the face itself. But the speed shell, what that does, it actually wraps slightly further heel and toe. So this is an insert into the face that wraps, goes a little bit wider, again allows a little bit more flexion, a little bit more ball speed. Just really kind of about distance, ball speed and height. What we've got internally, this is a cast frame, but it's a hollow body. We've got a soft foam on the inside. That's to do with dampening the feel, the sound down, softer feel, taking a bit of vibration out, but optimizing the feel of the head. And that's something that the distance irons have always had, that kind of tended to have that little harshness to them because of the materials used. The moment you put tech and a hollow body in, the sound rattles around inside a little bit more, but the harder materials in the frame tend to produce a higher pitched note. So the foam on the inside dulls that down, softens that down, makes it a more enjoyable club to hit with, but really strong hitting head. And this one goes from right and left hand, forward of pitch, gap wedge and sandwich, and both right and left-handed. It's going to move through to updates on the King Tech X and the King Tech. So going to start with the King Tech X. So these heads were in line last year. Again, this is an update on the models. Really good looking heads. I think these are heads that, from our point of view, if head weights were a hair lighter last year, we'd have done many more of them. Performance has been great off of these. And these have had updates to them. So actually, generally a little bit of a neater head shape across both models. The King Tech X is there are elements that are forged to it. There's more of a softer forged frame to the King Tech, but in the X, these are really geared around a little bit more distance again. So we've got a 70-gram tungsten weight in the sole here, and that creates a lot of discretionary weight movement, a lot of low forward center of gravity, lots of ball speed, higher launch, lots of performance off of it. So other variations between the two models, the Tech X is slightly larger in terms of frame shape, just to look a little bit more forgiving, and a little bit stronger on loft than the King Tech, which we'll move on to now. So the King Tech, really clean shape onto this, slightly neater head profile. So visually just a really clean, very classic, almost sort of blade-like look to have in the bag. A little bit of a smaller frame shape. This also has a hollow body construction, utilizing that softer foam. Both heads have that softer foam on the inside just to dampen that sound down, keep it feeling nice and soft. One of the differences with this one is this has a 5 times forged frame to the head. So a little bit of a softer material, that also helps with the sound a little bit, but just a little bit more maneuverability, a little bit more malleability to the frame of the head for loft lie adjustments, but just produces that different note, really geared towards essentially a progression from the more kind of player's end of the heads. Both heads have the power shell face with a little bit of hot face tech on them. That again, ball speed, higher launch, allows a little bit of a lighter face, moving weight lower in the head. Allied to this has got a little bit less offset than the Tech X, just again visually for the players it's geared towards. The offset on the other model helps a little bit of launch. Just helps to square the face up a bit more. This just a neater, cleaner line through the hosel. I'm just going to have a hit with this just to get a sense of that softer sound and feel. And this is something where, you know, using a slightly firmer ball here. So whilst there's a little bit of a pop off the face because of that face insert, the softer foam on the inside has really dampened that down. It was a much harder, clickier feel last year. That's going to be a much more enjoyable head to hit for a lot of players looking for that softer feel, but with a bit of performance and forgiveness. So, you know, great addition to the line there, or upgrade there. So now moving into the wedges, we've got the King series of wedges. Now, these are, you know, what's known as a MIM material, which is a metal injection molding process, which is 50% tighter grain structure than a cast head. So it's a softer, more consistent, softer feeling, but more consistent structure of head. So, you know, you're not going to get hard and soft spots on the head. So much nicer feeling, and from a bending and a maneuvering point of view, more consistent there as well. What you can see in particular here is that notch in the back. It's a different shape. It's a wider, shallower notch than previous series. Now, where it's a little bit, you know, narrower, then the edges were a little bit sharper, which actually meant it created a little bit of a catch if you open the face up. That graduated flow of shape just helps the speed of the head through the turf, makes for a smoother interaction, which means more consistent strike and better spin, because the ball stays on the face a bit better, runs up the face rather than catching and kicking and jagging the head offline. So a slightly adapted notchback, which is, I think it's 67% wider, which is, I think, from a versatility point of view, a big improvement. What we also have is a progression in weighting in the head, which is termed flight window technology. And really this is about moving the center of mass up and down the head depending on the loft of head to optimize CG for optimal launch and spin characteristics. So higher up the head in a higher lofted head to keep launch down and spin up, and lower down the head as you move into stronger lofts to get close to essentially where it would be in a pitch wedge performance. But as you can see from the toe of the head here, a wider section here than it is in the center, and that's moving that center of gravity up the back of the head. Finally, we come on to the grinds. Now, they've added grinds to the head this year. So we've got the classic V versatile shape, which Cobra have always had in this model, which is the one I'm holding here. There's also the wide low, which continues over from last year too. That one gives you, you know, a shallower, wider profile, which if you don't hit down too steeply but want a bit of protection in softer conditions, that's a great head and a great sole shape, particularly in the higher lofts. What has been added is the drop grind. Now, this is more of a kind of peaked up and graduated off, so it gives a little bit more bounce on the front half of the head, but then tapers off the back edge a little bit more. So it still allows the face to be opened up, that gives that little bit more protection on that front half. So again, for somebody who's a little bit steeper down, that's going to be a great grind. Also added the T grind or Tor grind, and where the drop grind is graduated up and then off, this one's a shallower base bounce, shallower front half, with that graduation on the back edge, so not as wide as the wide low, but the trailed back edge, just meaning loads of versatility, and particularly for, you know, good players, tight lies, really looking for maximum kind of opening ability to open the face up and play kind of flop shots and really kind of get out of jail shots around the greens. That shallower profile and ground back edge, again, really a good addition to Cobra's lineup. Those 4 grinds across all the different lofts, as well as all the options they carry, there's plenty to work with. And actually it's a really neat, tight head shape. I quite like the slightly smaller profile we've got onto this, and you can really feel the tread. There's no real talk about a change in the face that I can see currently, and that's maybe something that isn't currently in the information that we have, but I think it's a really neat head shape, and particularly in the black finish and the chrome, I think that's a really nice, neat shape. So moving on, final club we're going to look at today, to the King X wedge. Now, this is also that same MIM manufacturing process. So you've got the same material in both the heads, so that softer feel, maneuverability, consistency of performance and head material is still there. So what we've lost on this model is the grooves going all the way out to the toe. So this is something that, you know, visually is a little bit, I think, divisive. Some players really don't like them going out onto the toe. From a performance point of view, there are arguments for it, but actually I think in the main, for players that we see come through the bay, the more uniform, that kind of traditional ending of the grooves just inside the toe line tends to be a little bit more popular. But what this head has is an undercut design. There's a 20 grams worth of undercut there of weight saving by putting a TPU insert, so a softer material insert into the back of the head. Again, creates that softer feel, but it's a lighter material, so it allows that heavy undercut there, which gives the ability to perimeter weight that much more. So there's that much more weight to redistribute around the frame of the head. It gives forgiveness and stability off center. They've maintained from the previous series also really versatile sole shape. You've got plenty of width there to give you kind of effective performance in softer conditions, but that graduated back edge gives plenty of versatility to play the delicate shots around the greens as well. So to round up overall, I think it's a really interesting mix of tech and upgrades that Cobra have brought to the party this year. Obviously, Cobra themselves are focusing really heavily on the Future Fit 33, the hosel system, the adapter, which the versatility and the amount of options is quite mind-boggling. They've been very clever and done a QR code which brings up the list of all the positions so that it's easy to access, which again I think is very smart, make it easy for people to find it rather than go hunting in their bag for a piece of paper with it all on. But I think there's a lot more to it than that, whilst that probably will be a lot of the marketing focus for Cobra. They've always been very good at developing product and actually going to places that others might not from a product point of view, which potentially in the past has been labelled a little bit gimmicky, but actually Cobra always push the envelope a little bit. They've always been known to kind of maybe go there when others wouldn't. So I think deserve a lot of credit for the products over the years that they've had. And the balance of product keeps getting a little bit more refined over the years. The little refinements to the King Tech and the King Tech X irons, for example, just show that they're always thinking and progressing them. And I'm looking forward to getting fitting with these in the start of the new year. Another point, actually, whilst very, very minor, head cover quality. Actually really nice. Not something that we talk about much because it's not tech. However, it is quite tiresome when head covers fall apart or just look really bland and boring. And actually, as part of the overall product itself, I think, again, done a really great job with it. Nice and neat and clean, simple in the bag. So really looking forward to getting these products in the fitting bay. We will be having them, some of the fitting kits will get out there this year. We will have ours early in the new year. So again, really looking forward to getting into the deep dive into the product, which we will do in the future. There will be future videos on details between the heads from a flight and a spin comparison. And once we start to see them in the fitting bay, we will then release some of those videos. So look out for those sometime in the first quarter, I would imagine. Once we start to get hands-on with real golfers in the bay, rather than just some of the fitters hitting shots and commenting on them, we'll start to learn the nuances and where they really work and where their strengths and weaknesses are, so we can give you a little bit more insightful info as the year progresses through. We'll have more and more of that to come. So hope you've enjoyed this overview, relatively brief overview. So we'll get into the details a little bit more in the new year. If you like all the content, if you enjoyed watching it, please subscribe, like, let us know anything you want us to cover, and we'll happily do that for you. But look forward to getting these in next year, and if you fancy coming and testing them out, let us know, come in for a fitting, and we'll definitely see you next year.